Got another banger for y'all today, a battle that is sure to be a smash hit because the Trials of Tzeentch have returned, and that means some goofy, ridiculous, and bananas builds from the auto-gen gods. It has been probably multiple years since any Trials of Tzeentch replays at this point, so if you are unfamiliar or just downright forgot, no worries, it's pretty simple. You click the random army button when you're building your stack, and whatever you are given, you are stuck with. Sometimes you are blessed by the changer, sometimes it feels more like a curse, and in this free-for-all, we got some really fun builds to show off. Arocrastic and the Ogres, Black Phillip and the Dark Elves, Rider of Rohan and the High Elves, and your boy on the Beastmen, all ready to get this baby poppin' like Orville Redenbacher. We're in the Mirror Forest of Ulthuan, a woodland ravine with some interesting choke points and a lot of cover. The first army we'll take a look at is the Ogre tribe for Arrow. He actually kind of has a legit build here. I'd argue he's been blessed. Yeah, not a single Nobblar, which is a bit funky, but he has a Slaughtermaster, not a piece of crap like Greasus. He has double Giant, which is way harder to deal with when people can't make their own armies and just automatically shoot you to death. Bunch of Bulls and Iron Guts, Mournfang Cav and Gorgers, and just in general a ton of melee power. But if they run into any army of spears and shooting, they're probably going to be in trouble. Across from them are the Dark Elves of Black Phillip with a much stranger auto-gen army. Charybdis and Blackguard are awesome to have versus Ogres, as are Cold One Knights. A couple Blackguard Corsairs, a Reaper Bolt Thrower, 2 Harpies, and a Supreme Sorceress on a Black Dragon. And apparently, Rider of Rohan only plays High Elves, which is absolutely disgusting. Literally offends me, playing only one faction game with this much variety. But he has a Gold Chevron Star Dragon, a Gold Chevron Bolt Thrower, Silver and Guard, Silver Helms, an Archmage on an Eagle with the lore of High Magic, White Lions, the Fireborn Dragon Princes, and Sisters of Avalorn. Very elite army for the Azur in this one. And finally, for the Brayherds of the Beastmen, I have been cursed. An army of Bestigors, 3 of them. My only weakness, guaranteed to die horrible deaths by my hand. The Eye of Morslib Cygor, a Giant, a Beast Lord on a Razorgore Chariot, Minotaur, Centaurs, and a smattering of Ungor. So overall, really not a bad build, but a lot of it will come down to how well I use the Bestigors, and as we've seen in many replays in the past, I typically do not do very well with them. There was some miscommunication with both the Knife-Eared players in this one too. Both of them stripped away the spells they didn't want and paid for some chevrons instead, which is typically not how we play Trials of Tzeentch, but after we got done reporting them to local authorities and repoed their gaming PCs as recompense, we continued the battle. Everything was alright. We were just extremely consumed with rage. I'm literally shaking still thinking about it, but we moved on. Alright, let's get into the battle. Fate of Bajuners from the Supreme Sorceress taking on the Mournfang Cavalry. We'll switch back over to that in a little bit and see how much damage that spell dealt. Bestigor Herd are already first into the breach alongside the Beast Lord. Looks like the Mournfang Cav have dropped, they might get close to half HP after that spell. Fireborn with a great engagement up here on the hill directly into the Minotaurs, who are a bit overextended on the flank. They're going to be helped out by Korok's Man Rippers, but let's get a better look at that Bestigor charge. This is how you want to use them, essentially. Get their charge, make sure that you stay in combat for a good 20 or 30 seconds. Then if you can, utilize that high mobility and escape to cycle charge. They're almost used more like cavalry, and if you can manage to stampede your way into armored infantry 2 or 3 times throughout the course of a battle, you'll see much better results than if you were to just leave them in, where their low MD and susceptibility to missile fire can mess them up pretty bad. Of course, in this situation, they also have the advantage of fighting in the woods, which is not a venue they always get to enjoy, and that'll help them out a lot because it means Sisters of Avalorn can't immolate the entire regiment with Moonfire bows. On the other side, Dark Riders have left the safety of the tree line to move in close and get some point-blank volleys of armor-piercing crossbows into the Ogre peoples. Blackguard are actually in the Ogre back line right now. I'm not even sure how that happened. And an Arnzapul's Black Horror from the Supreme Sorceress creeping through. Now, normally this would be much better against tightly packed infantry formations. Against monstrous infantry, not going to be anywhere near as impactful, but hey, it looked cool, and we're here for the spectacle, so everything's all gravy on that front. Fireborn are retreating from their initial engagement. Warp Gaze on the Star Dragon has pinned it down in place as Korok's Man Rippers get close, but an Apotheosis heal should keep them topped off. And the Minotaurs, who retreated from those Fireborn, charge downhill into the woods and are beating the brakes off those poor Silver Helms, who will not be long for this world. Now, the Ogres do have to be very careful against these Blackguard of Naggarond. We'll see more of that engagement in a second here. Giant pushed all the way through, got into the Sisters of Avalorn. Will take eons to beat his way through them. They have a lot of MD, and the Giant's not very good at wave clear, much better in duel scenarios. But anything to silence the Sisters, probably going to be a good thing for the Beastmen, even though their damage will be mitigated somewhat by firing into the tree line. Star Dragon's going to be a huge issue. That monster has 75 melee attack, 60 plus melee defense with gold chevrons. It is going to be so hard to kill, particularly because Hand of Glory and Apotheosis will be tossed its way pretty much the entire battle. Sisters have retreated from the Giant, getting some point-blank volleys into it, while the Bestigors charge out of the tree line and are in and amongst the Fireborn Dragon Princes, which is a decent fight for them. They'll trade pretty evenly there. And Aerocrastic, even though the Lore of Beast is a bit unorthodox for this build, Sulfuric Breath from the Black Dragon raining in from above, he's actually going to use Weisson's Wild Form very effectively by keeping his ogres in this tightly packed fist and dropping an overcast so they all get the increase in weapon damage. And meanwhile, the Iron Guts have a full surround off on the Blackguard of Nagorond, who did overextend into the Ogre rear. And that means they may die here dealing with all this bonus versus infantry and armor piercing. Do remember that Iron Guts got +5 bonus versus infantry in the last patch. So a Spirit Leech and the rest of these death magic spells come in from the Supreme Sorceress. Really good engagement from Black Phillip because the Cold One Knights have gotten into the Ogre Bulls and they have a plethora of targets they can rip into with their Raptors. At the moment, very even game. 3 players already knocking on the door of 4,000 points, and Black Phillip is not too far behind. The Beastmen went all the way around the flank. Their Minotaurs and Chariots are into the Sisters of Avalorn, while a big and very important duel between the SEMs goes down. The Eye of Morslib Sigurd and a Giant pinning down the Star Dragon in place, spit roasting it from front and back, and it has nowhere to go right now. There's too much mass in the way. The Archmage realized how dangerous that situation is, so she's gonna retreat. Star Dragon has 2 choices. It can try to push its way through, or it can just fight, and with that high MD, it might just want to fight. At the moment, it doesn't have a choice to run away, though. Second Warp Gaze cast on the Star Dragon. There are heals being tossed its way, so it should be able to survive that. In fact, the Giant is actually coming out worse for the wear in that fight. Eye of Morslib's dropped a lot too, so Star Dragon certainly generating plenty of value, but the range play for the High Elves is entirely shut down, and to be honest, Minotaur going flying, that was insane. High Elves didn't really have a chance to get good value from their Sisters here, just because most of the fighting is going on in the woods, and frankly, the ground between both armies, the Azur and the Beastmen, was mostly littered with forest, so there weren't too many choices on where to take that fight. Anyway, the Double Giant were actually initially sent over to fight against the Beastmen. I think Aerocrastic forgot about them for a couple seconds, so he brought them all the way back. But they're slow, they're lumbering, they took their time getting over there. Now, 5 minutes in, they're finally about to join the battle. Supreme Sorceress sees them coming and takes the skies, but she wants to take out that Slaughtermaster, so alongside the Charybdis, that might be enough to snipe any Lord in the game out. But here come the Double Giants, and while Aerocrastic does not have a ton of bodies on the field, he didn't even at the start of the game, but certainly now, dealing with all these halberds and range play from the Druki, he has a really potent goon squad that could also offer up a lot of points, and at the moment, he is down by about, actually, no, Aerocrastic just jumped into the lead after a couple hits from the Giant, then he shifted over to look at the High Elves and Beastmen fights. So he was behind, now he's up by 700 or 800 points, so we'll keep an eye on that. High Elves are in tatters, but they still have their most important troops remaining, the Star Dragon and the Archmage. Reaper Bolt Thrower, or rather the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower that has gold chevron firing into the woods. Not going to do a lot of damage, but once the Beastmen break from the tree line, that is when it can start causing some serious carnage, because the Beastmen are getting pretty grouped up here. They have to deal with that Star Dragon to provide enough mass and surround potential to potentially tie it down. And gentlemen, I say with great pleasure that the 2 initial Bestigors did quite well. They killed a bunch of White Lions and Spearmen. It was awesome. This is like the first time ever I've ever done good with Bestigors. Hell yeah. We the best. Music. Double Giant play surrounding the Charybdis, and the Dark Elves don't have a lot of bodies in support there. Supreme Sorceress on the Black Dragon should be pretty scared to go into that fight, as well as we talked about before. Giants, what they're really good at doing is beating the brakes off foot characters or other SEMs. They are not good at wave clear. They are not going to kill a lot of infantry quickly, and of course, very susceptible to missile fire, but if you get them on a big, scary, armored monster, they can smash it, and that is what they're doing to the Charybdis and the Black Dragon right now, and that is why Aerocrastic has 8,000 points, and Black Phillip is at 7,000. Beastmen are right there alongside Arrow. They're about 200 points behind at the moment. Korok's Manrippers broke from the tree line, ran straight for the Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers to finally try and tie them down. The Fireborn charge in from behind, and the Star Dragon is probably waiting for a big-time breath attack. When Strawberry Milkshake rains from the heavens, that is when you know you are in trouble against the High Elves. Here it comes. Bestigor saw it. They're going to dodge the worst of its effects. But the Burninating and Trogdoring of that Star Dragon will cause some terror routes as it lands in and amongst the Bray Herd. And the Beastmen could be susceptible to some chain routing here as that monstrosity lands amidst their army. They still have the Giant, they still have the Beast Lord, and they still have Bestigors. More importantly, they have Korok's Manrippers, which are the Halberd variant. But those guys are indisposed at the moment, dealing with the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower at the crest of that hill. And now we've got a single entity duel. Giants and Dragons going at it, and match combat animations were a welcome addition to this class of monster in the trilogy. Cool to see them not just smack each other in the toe. Slaughtermaster Laura Beast hit by a Spirit Leech, and the Supreme Sorceress might be able to finally snack on the tub of lard. High calorie snack to be sure, might not be great for the LDL or cholesterol, but hey, sometimes you gotta treat yourself. Arrow looks like he's gonna manage to win against Black Phillip on that side, but crazy thing about these free-for-all games, you keep 1 or 2 units alive, and you might be able to sneak your way back into it if you're the last man standing. Fireborn have been entirely surrounded, cut to pieces by the Ungor and Korok's Manrippers. Giant and Eye of Morslib Cygor stomping their way over. It is insane how much damage has been sent the way of the Star Dragon this battle, and still it is alive. Credit the Archmage and credit that gold chevron play, because 61 MD on a monster that big is not something you see every day. Slaughtermaster has been slaughtered. Black Dragon finally getting one little chomp into his big old booty, and that'll be the end for the Lore of Beastcaster. That's a big loss for the Ogres here. I imagine he wasn't anywhere near to using all his Winds of Magic pool. He was only using Flock of Doom and some licensed wild forms, maybe a Pan's Pelt at some point. So there was still more he could have done with his Winds of Magic, but good job from Black Phillip to isolate and destroy him. Would have been hard to keep it alive against that Black Dragon. Star Dragon still has 1,300 points it can be healed by, but I'm not sure how the Winds of Magic pool is doing for the Archmage right now. She does have Greater Arcane Conduit as a premier caster amongst the Azure, of course, one of the most magically adept races in the Warhammer setting. But now the Star Dragon doesn't have any support from infantry or cavalry or artillery, and that means it must fight the herd, the horde. And the Beastmen are smelling blood in the water. This might be the end of the Apex Predator, and indeed it is. Hand of Glory not enough to keep it alive. Star Dragon falls in and amongst a horde of halberds and woodland furries. So Beastmen have cleaned up that side. They are in first place by about 1,000. Aerocrastic is in second. Black Phillip is in third, and Rider of Rohan is in fourth. But this is a very even free-for-all, and this is still pretty much anyone's game except the High Elves. I don't think the Archmage can do anything more here except maybe pick off some stragglers and cast a Tempest or two. So we'll keep an eye on that, because she does have enough Winds of Magic for a Tempest, and there may or may not be some juicy targets to throw that at. Ogre Bulls are just straight up lost. They were wandering the woods. They have no idea where they're going. Geriatric guys, I don't know if they've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or what, Lewy body dementia. What's going on with these boys? They're very confused right now, and they have stumbled into the teeth of the Bray Herd, and they're going to be punished for it. Not a massive deal. Bulls don't give a crazy amount of points, and I don't think they even have, the Beastmen have enough speed to run them down and kill off the unit anyway. But here comes the Tempest from the Archmage, and that can still hit flyers when they're on the ground too. So the High Elves basically said, screw you, and your little dog too, Mugatu. Remember the Sundering? For my family. And even if the Azure can't win this game, you gotta love the pettiness. It's so lore accurate. It feels so right. High Elves and Dark Elves don't even fight each other this entire battle, yet the last thing the Archmage does is take a steel chair to the back of her counterpart's head. Stacy Keebler status. Love it. That shit is hilarious. So the Archmage is now chasing after the Dark Riders, gonna do what she can. She has a chance to be last man standing, I guess, if something crazy happens. So she'll bide her time, but for the Beastmen, they want to take the fight in the woods again, if they can. Worked out great against the High Elves. Will work out pretty well here, potentially, although they have a lot of HP and weapon damage to get through against that double giant play, who are caked in the blood of the Druki and supported by some Iron Guts and additional troops as well. They won't have any winds of magic sent their way. Their lord has died. The Beastmen are looking relatively strong here. Points are dead even between Indie Pride and Aerocrastic, though, which should make for an exciting conclusion here. And it's going to be a straight-up monster mash. Ungor Raiders letting loose with their last volley as the monsters pile in. The Beast Lord is going to watch for a second and then potentially come around for a rear charge. But the Beastmen Giant is pretty low. Has to take on two of them. Eye of Morslem also not strong enough to take on a Giant in 1v1 and expect to win. But it's not a 1v1 because Korok's Manrippers are swarming at the feet and around the heels of these Ogre Giants, and they have halberds and a really good stat line, and that could be enough to turn the tide in their favor. The Archmage on the Great Eagle coming in to support, rather kill. She's not really here to help anybody out, she just wants more points. Beastman Giant got all turn around, down to 1400 health remaining. Big time slam, this time into the toe of the Ogre Giant, and a huge headbutt, knocking him backwards. Beast Lord cycle charging, trying to get whatever damage in he can. Actually surprising how effective Razor Gore Chariots can be in duels, so expect that Beast Lord to make an impact here for sure. Beastman Giant down to 200 health, and a final blow will fell it. It might have even gone to the Archmage and the High Elves, but she's gonna rout now, surrounded by the Beast Lord and Korok's Manrippers. She dies not long after the Beastman Giant did, and the double Ogre Giants are both still alive, and they have to contend with halberds and the Eye of Morslib, which is, while not as good in duels, certainly is very tanky and survivable. So, looking at the points, only a 500 lead for the Beastmen, but as the Ogre Giant falls, points are kind of irrelevant. It's more going to be about who's last man standing, and I think that is a foregone conclusion at this point. The Bray Herd are stampeding up the hill into the final Ogre monster, and as the Eye of Morslib duels it, it will drop to 1 HP and survive? Potentially. Siege Giant goes down. Oh my god, a final volley from the Dark Riders kills the Cygor. Eye of Morslib is dead, and that was hilarious because literally the Giant brought it down to 1 HP and we were all freaking out in Discord and like, oh my god, I cannot believe it just survived. And then the Dark Riders came out of nowhere and killed it just out of spite. So just like the Black Dragon was killed out of spite with Tempest, Black Phillip comes in with the Dark Rider crossbow volley and finishes off the Eye of Morslib to get literally 1 point. Brutal. And an awesome battle. This time, the Beastmen are going to manage to take it. 16,000 points. Arrow in second with the Ogres at 13,000. Black Phillip at 9,000. And Rider of Rohan at 8,400. And the best scores were great. All of them over 1,000 value. Korok's Manrippers actually carried me hard this game because almost all of their important fights were in the woods and against big creatures. They killed some Fireborn, they killed Silverhelms, they did a ton of damage to Star Dragon, they took on Giants at the end of the game. They had over 3,000 value and were fantastic. Archmage and the Star Dragon together were a thorn in my side for a very long time. I just couldn't seem to bring it low, but Star Dragon ended up with about 2,300 value, and for the Ogres, the double Giants were definitely MVPs, both them at about 2,800, dealt all kinds of damage to single entities in this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. I had a blast with it. Peace out.